Hey, how's everybody doing? I will play as much as I can. I promise you that. But the focus of this stream is going to be for me to comment on the congressional hearing on the UFO phenomenon. And I
Connected to Bluetooth.
because I don't want to get anything that Twitter's going to treat like a copyright threat. It's a congressional hearing, so I should be able to legally live stream it. But I'm having a lettuce sandwich and some sweet pickles. But I know a couple streamers, and it wasn't UFO stuff. It was, what they considered more important. I think what most people would consider more important. Not judging anything, but um, God, there was one other one I can't remember, and David Packman was one of them. They got hit with a copyright strike for using C-SPAN. They got hit by one of the major news companies, like either ABC, NBC, or CBS, or something like that. And this one, I'm not sure any news is covering live, so it'll be a different thing. But so keep in mind, I do not have a chat that I can see. Um, I can either watch this or I can watch my because on Xbox, for reasons passing understanding, they do not give you a chat. I mean, Twitch does not give you an option to view the chat on the Xbox when you're streaming for reasons passing understanding. So I either have to have this open so I can watch it, or I got to have Twitter open. I can't do both. For anybody out there that I do follow, that I used to watch like religiously, understand if I ever get to where I can either bring my computer to me or I can go back up and use my Twitter, I can actually do that again. But short of relocating the computer down here, that's not an option until it cools off, because right now I am unable to put the air conditioner in the window up, and it just gets too hot. Even in normal, if we weren't, and like we're not really getting, like where we're at here, we're really not getting the heat wave that others are. I gotta admit, like today it's raining. I I kind of joked around. I was watching. Bear with me. I'm trying to get this done before the hearing starts. I don't feel so bad now. I thought it was going to be at 10 o'clock. And when I woke up, I turned on YouTube. Luckily, I did. Normally, I don't that early. I watch other stuff, but I didn't want to get hooked on something. I want to be ready to jump in, because I've done this before where, somebody I respect announces on Twitter or now Threads, hey, I'm going live on this news show, and then I forget they're on because I'm engrossed in something. And some of that's because I'm lightheaded, some of it's not. And so I wanted to be kind of focused. so I wouldn't miss this. If I couldn't do it, fine, but I didn't want to not do it because I fucked up and forgot about it. And I saw it show up in my feed that it was going to be at 9 o'clock, and I'm like, oh shit! They said 10 o'clock, but that was all like local DC time for the Eastern time zone. So here I am. And I was up anyways. I usually get up around 4, and I got up early today. I woke up. This is where I'm not sure. I was a little lightheaded. It sometimes takes me an hour or so to get kind of acclimated when I wake up. Some days are better than others. I can't remember if I woke up early and had to pee, or if I was just dreaming that. And then I woke up pretty close to 3:30, not quite, but pretty close to it. And I really had to pee. And it's a problem anytime, but it's more of a problem in the morning and in the evening. There was a real chance that if I got up and peed like around 3:30, quarter to 4, I wouldn't feel like getting up and feeding the cats when it was their breakfast time. So I just got up and fed the cats. And they got fed like way early. I thought it was closer to 4 o'clock, but it was like 3:35, 3:39 when I was getting back into bed after feeding them. So I did that, and then she was just bugging me, and it wasn't even 9 o'clock yet. It was like she was bugging me, like, "Hey, you fed us breakfast early. How about feeding us lunch early?" But but here's the thing: it's storming pretty bad, and I made a promise. Like this was, I watched Beyond Skinwalker last night or this morning. I think it was this morning. I think I watched a little bit of it and then shut it off because I was pretty sure I was going to fall asleep. And hang on a sec. Alexa, volume 7. Alexa, volume 8. And it's starting now. But they were investigating skinwalkers off the ranch on a Navajo site. And as soon as they set up their equipment and turned it on and started searching, for stuff, the winds picked up, and they when they briefed the guys back at the ranch, they said the reason we did it that day, because they were there for multiple days, I guess. We did it that day and we did it at night because the weather was supposed to be good. The information. But as soon as they started doing what they were doing, it just went nuts. It was blowing. It was blowing the cameraman around. It was blowing their laptop. And it's this former Navajo Ranger that you've seen on the show. I've seen him on other shows on the History Channel and off the History Channel. He's very, very well respected for these type of shows to bring him in. it got bad enough. He's like, I'm thinking maybe we should stop. This is not a good sign. And as soon as they said they were stopping, the wind died down. Well, that happened. Like I was streaming a couple weeks ago on a Saturday, and I was talking about the Skinwalker Ranch, and I started talking about underground bases. And it was like today, it was kind of raining, but it was real gentle, real peaceful. But as soon as I started talking about these underground bases that they were talking about on the show, it got bad. It got really fucking bad. And I let everybody know. I go, hey, the weather's getting bad. I'm just going to shut everything off. With my bad foot, I can't go up. I used to go up and unplug the internet all the time when this happened. And with my bad foot, I haven't been able to, I haven't really felt comfortable doing it, but I at least wanted to shut my Xbox off, so it didn't get zapped. And as soon as I quit, like, not quite instantly, but almost instantly, the fucking storm stopped and it went back to like normal weather, or well, the normal rain, real gentle. And today it was really good. And then as soon as I saw, I'm not making this up, as soon as I saw that this thing was going to be at 9 o'clock, oh God, it started thundering really bad. And I had made a promise that day, like when I quit streaming and then I came back to basically do like my next stream because the weather I came back to do it because the weather sort of settled down, and I kind of made the promise. I go, hey, if there's anybody in the government or if there's anyone or anything out there that does not want me talking about UFOs and underground bases and whatever, let me win one of those big lotteries that's up, and I will quit talking about it for the rest of the year unless I forget. And I go, and then all you got to do is heal me so I don't have these lightheaded spells and I can function better. And I'll remember to do it all the time. But I go, with my health issues, I'll do the best I can. Well, this thing started as soon as I realized it was going to be at 9 o'clock instead of 10 o'clock. So I checked my lottery tickets for last night because I'm thinking, well, shit, I better check because if I won the lottery, I better keep my word. We're in no danger, so I can do the stream today. And I was watching a clip on News Nation. It sounds like there might be some surprise witnesses. Grouch, he's the one who just did some interviews with News Nation. David Fravor, and I can't think of the other guy's name. I do know who he is. I said the other day, it's either someone, either I don't remember the name or it's somebody I haven't heard. He's another Navy pilot. Okay, Tim Burchett, representative from Tennessee, one of the few people I actually know that's going to be asking questions. He just mentioned that George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell are in the audience. They're not witnesses, but they offered some written information, and he just asked for unanimous consent to put it on the record. I really wish I could have this, but like I said, I just don't want to get hit with it. There's probably nobody going to watch this anyways, but I'll give you the best comments I can. Oh my God, I was watching a clip. I'm more interested in what the witnesses are going to say because the congressmen admit that they've been stonewalled and lied to. So I'm not sure they know that much. So I'm more interested in what the witnesses are going to say. But I was watching a clip on YouTube from the Hill yesterday, and they've been, I would say, I don't know if it's good coverage. I don't know if they're nuts, but they've been covering this on the Hill. And the funny thing is, I might have to quit. I have no idea. It's really starting to get bad. But they were talking on the Hill yesterday that yeah, I think there might be something that does not want me to cover this. I don't know, but they were covering, that the Democrats might be blocking certain people from getting on their ticket, just not even letting them compete. And I knew they were talking about that RFK Jr. And they brought on somebody. Oh my God, she was just all up in arms and blah blah blah. And I commented on it and I go, look, normally I might agree with your guest in that this is wrong, but I go, when we are talking about somebody who is trying to compete for the Democratic ticket and they are a troll for another party, they are a conspiracy theorist, or they are, basically a useful idiot working for either Russia or China or another country like them. I go, they absolutely should refuse to let them on the ticket. I go, it shouldn't even be a question. And because they had mentioned Gabby Giffords. They had mentioned Gabby Giffords in addition. And I said, and when you were talking about RFK Jr. and Gabby, or Tulsi Gabbard, when you're talking about Tulsi Gabbard, not Gabby Giffords, but Tulsi Gabbard, I go, they've got at least one of those check boxes marked off, maybe more. I go, they absolutely should not let them on the ticket. That should be for people that are actually Democrats, not conspiracy theorists, nut jobs. I go, if they want to be a nut job, if they want to be a Russian troll, if they want to be a GOP troll, then they should be on the GOP ticket. They shouldn't be on the Democratic ticket. And they also mentioned that Cornel West, and I go, and as far as you guys mentioning Cornel West, I actually like Cornel West. I go, I have respect for him. But I go, I think he's gone too far. I go, he was on, I can't remember if I mentioned this now, but I was thinking it if I didn't mention it in my comment. I saw him like 5 or 6 years ago on, it was when Hillary was running before Trump got in. And he was on Bill Maher's show. And I go, he does not look as sharp as he used to be. I go, I don't think he's qualified to be president anymore. Because I go, he was being asked questions, simple but important questions, and you could see him kind of, his brain would lock up and he'd have to process it. This is not the guy you need in the room when you got to have an answer on Russian nukes in like a minute. Something that's not quite as simple, something that's more nuanced. But I go, he just isn't there anymore. And I go, I don't think we should keep lying to ourselves. I go, we've got to have competent people that we're going to elect. We've got to have competent people in the running. We've got to have competent people on the ticket. I go, the people that are pushing for this need to learn something from Liz Cheney, where she said, and this I'm thinking, I don't think I put this in, but Liz Cheney made the comment that, electing competent people can't be a partisan issue, because she was basically stating the Democrats are the only ones that are electing serious people. It's like a fucking clown show with the Republicans. Well, this is the thing the far left has been doing for like a decade or more. What they want to do is they want to elect the left-leaning version of the Tea Party. And we can't have it. We absolutely can't have that. God, it's like every person they have on is a little louder than the last one. Pick a volume, guys. I don't know how much this mic will pick up. Hopefully none. That is my sincere hope. Okay, this is Mr. Garcia. I don't know who he is. I don't know this committee. I think it's part of the oversight, but it's a subcommittee, and like half the seats seem like they're empty. I don't know if that's just because I do not want to get fucked over here. We'll put that in peaceful. I don't know if it's because people are gone or if they just don't have a full committee. Because this was the thing last time. There were a lot of people that didn't show up. And people on both sides of this issue, both parties, have said that, there's some of them, like when they did the one last year. They said there were certain people on both sides that kind of snickered and like, oh yeah, yeah, but they said there were a lot of people that came up to them and said, hey, I think it's great that you're doing this. Please keep fighting it. The one thing, and it's on Threads, and I don't know how. I don't know. There aren't as many people on Threads yet. President Biden still doesn't have an account there. POTUS doesn't have an account there. There's one that might be his wife, but it hasn't been granted the check mark, so I doubt it. But I kind of reached out to the Democrats that are on Threads. And the thing I kind of mentioned, I go, if you go back to Nixon was pardoned by Ford. And I go, that sent a message that Republicans in office could break the law and get away with it. And, that wasn't Ford's intent. I seriously don't believe it was, but that was the effect. So I go, then Iran-Contra came, which was a little bit worse than Watergate. And it confirmed, because even though they tried to put those people in jail, many of them did, even though they got put in jail, were let loose because Congress had forced them to testify. And that was now apparently they weren't smart enough to fucking plead the fifth, but they got immunity because they testified in front of Congress. And so that sent a message, and then Bush Sr. pardoned everybody, and the speculation, Bill Barr was the one that helped him do that. Go look it up. There was speculation that he pardoned the remaining people because it sort of came out that Reagan, either because of Alzheimer's or not being involved, did not remember it. He didn't know anything about it. And it could have been the Alzheimer's, but it could have been that the former CIA chief, Bush Sr., was running it, and that Reagan didn't know anything about it. And keep in mind that you've had people like Grover Norquist that have said, we don't need a smart Republican president. We just need a Republican president that's got enough brain cells to sign whatever we put in front of them. Well, they had that with Reagan. They had it with Bush Jr. They definitely had it with Trump. That one chief of staff, Reince Priebus, who was from Wisconsin, if I remember right. He was chief of staff, and some lawyer came in and said, Trump just ordered me to do something illegal, so I'm gonna resign. And he said, oh, don't resign, just don't do it. You had members of Trump's staff that when they would put something on his desk that they didn't want him to see, they'd wait until he wasn't paying attention. They'd rip it off his desk and get it out of there. There were intelligence people that worked for Trump that basically made the comment that they made comments of, like, lawyers or reporters and stuff made comments about Trump and his involvement with dictators and that. And the intelligence guy, and I think it might have been God, he was either a general or a colonel, kind of a short, stocky guy with bald hair. And I think he was a national security advisor. I might be wrong, but I think that's the job he had. And he goes, oh, well, we just don't tell him that stuff. And, so it was basically Grover Norquist seemed to be right. Where he said, look, we can just have an idiot in there who can just sign whatever. Well, they had it with all of them. People that just weren't that fucking bright. And I mentioned, well, you had Iran-Contra. Then you had the war crimes and Abu Ghraib and all the stuff that happened under President Bush. The outing of the CIA agent. And they did put Libby in jail. For Abu Ghraib, they put all the low-hanging fruit in the military in it, but they didn't go after the leadership in the Pentagon. They didn't go after the leadership in the White House. They didn't go after... There were pictures that showed up, and it showed non-commissioned officers, and people that were not in military uniform. Now, we don't know if they were... I never found out, and I don't think anybody else did, if they were intelligence officers or private contractors. They never went after them. They scapegoated one general who... She was in charge of like 17 bases. She spent 1 or 2 days a month at this place, and I would be willing to bet, if I was a betting person, I'd be willing to go all in, that none of this shit was going on when she was there. They could take 1 or 2 days off. They could give the poor Iraqi prisoners balls a day off when she'd show up. And that's what they did. The people that were really behind it, because like Chris Matthews said, he goes, look, those people did not go to Iraq with the dog collars and the other shit. They were given to them by somebody, And nobody was found guilty. You had a lawyer that wrote a memo basically legalizing torture. And at the very least, that lawyer should have been disbarred. That lawyer should have been maybe looked at. Even if they couldn't charge him, he should have been investigated for war crimes. He should have been sent to the Hague. They should have been able to question him. And it might have sent a little bit of fear to not do it. Well, then we heard this with Trump. There's all this illegal shit that he did. And you were hearing that for a while. They're like, oh, well, he had legal advice. He was given legal memos. And I finally asked the president and the Democrats, I go, look, I don't fucking understand this. I go, they did this under Bush Jr. I go, they act like, just because they act like, oh, we got a legal memo from some fucking stupid ass lawyer. So I go, he might actually have a lawsuit where he could sue them for being an incompetent lawyer. But I told him, look, I am pretty sure that when I was working at General Motors, I was drugged or poisoned for, bringing up quality issues and other stuff that was going on. That was wrong, and it should have stopped. And I go, now, if I went and found some dumb shit lawyer from Regent University who wrote me a memo that I could go and kill the people that I am pretty sure did this to me, and that it would be considered self-defense, I go, I got a sneaking suspicion that if I was still healthy enough to do that I would be investigated, I would be arrested, I would be prosecuted and indicted. And I go, unless I beat it with some kind of a technicality, or, they fucked up the evidence like OJ or something, I'm pretty sure I'd go to jail for it. I go, how does this shit float? And it was like shortly after I did that, that was the last I heard of this, oh, well, my lawyer made me do it defense. Um, and I mentioned, I go, you can link this. It's a trail. You can go from Nixon to Trump, and you can see the gradual increase in this illegality. And then what do you hear from the Republicans? There's even some of them go, oh, well, yeah, what he did was wrong, but he shouldn't be prosecuted. And I go, you have to prosecute it or it's going to happen again. I go, we've seen it from Nixon going forward. If Nixon had not been pardoned, if everybody that was involved in Watergate and the cover-up had gone to jail, maybe they wouldn't have done it. Maybe Iran-Contra wouldn't have happened. Maybe the other illegal shit under the Reagan administration wouldn't have happened. And I go, or if they fucked up Nixon, if they had prosecuted and been able to hold him in jail, maybe the war crimes wouldn't have happened under Bush. And I go, if you'd have held the people, all of them accountable, not just a few scapegoats here and there, if you'd have held them all accountable, maybe the shit in Trump wouldn't have happened. Like if you basically put that one, like for Bush, if you put that one lawyer in jail for war crimes because of that memo he wrote, because I'm sorry, that's something that as a lawyer, you should at least be disbarred for. If you write a memo and it states that what we basically executed Japanese soldiers for doing, waterboarding, if you write a memo that acts like that's okay, you should at the very least, Bill Clinton got disbarred because he lied about a blowjob. He basically, he got a blowjob from a Jew on Easter in the Oval Office, and he got disbarred for that because he lied about it. And they'd have probably wanted him disbarred even if he hadn't lied about it. And for some reason, he was disbarred for that. But you've got this fucking idiot who basically wrote a memo that says we could torture people. It's cool. It's okay. And that's for some reason, not an offense that you can lose your law license for. I'm sorry, that's just wrong. And then I mentioned, I go going in, and this is where I was going with this, when you get the UFO subject, Lou Elizondo, he's the guy who ran ATIP for Harry Reid when it was created. And he made a comment, because it was on the Theory of Everything podcast. And the guy wanted to know, like, why people in power would want to keep this stuff quiet. And he said, well, here's the thing. Graves is on. I don't want to. I think he's just giving his opening statement. They're not doing quick, but I kind of want to listen to this, and I'll try and give you some updates on it. But I want to finish this. But I said, he basically said that there are people who broke the law. They broke the law. There were laws that said they had to report this stuff up the chain of command to Congress, to the White House, and they broke the law. They didn't report this stuff up. In fact, they sometimes, may have, and he was doing it all as a hypothetical. He was covering his ass. But, these people might go to jail for the rest of their lives if their criminal activity comes to light. And he said, and then, you got this thing where you've got these billion-dollar contracting companies who might have been given special treatment by the government. And that caused other companies to go under. That caused other people to lose jobs, lose pensions. That caused investors to lose money. Because he said the government's supposed to be fair. And he goes, if it comes out that they were playing favorites, he goes, you could end up with, aside from any criminal activity, you could end up having lawsuits going off because of people losing their jobs, people losing their pensions, investors losing their money, people who own stock losing money. He goes, that could open up. And he said, maybe if they offered some immunity. Well, this is what that Ross Coulthart was saying. He's like, well, for the people that kept this a secret and broke the law, he goes, I don't know what good it would do to prosecute them. And I think he sincerely means it. I think he's a well-intentioned person, but we can see from the Republican politician branch, you have to hold in. This is what I was telling him. I go, for this shit you guys got coming up, you can't offer any immunity to these people that lied to Congress, obstructed Congress, because I go, if you do, it'll happen again. You have to send a message. You have to make an example of these people so that 10, 20 years from now, they're not going to lie to you again. Or they're not going to tell you part of a truth now and then come forward later and you find out they lied to you and they kept some of the stuff from you. David Grush is giving his opening statement now. I'm gonna do my best, but if I suddenly cut out, it's if you see me shutting things off or whatever, then obviously I'm taking precautions. But if it just suddenly goes out, more than likely lightning took me out, and I might be done on the internet. Peace out, and I wish everybody the best going forward if that happens. But the way I looked at it, I was in there watching this. You know, I can't go up and unplug it. I was in there watching YouTube, so I'm using the internet. It's hooked up. I'm thinking there's probably no more risk of getting zapped in there or in here. Commander Fravors the one that he's up now. He's the one I know the best. I've seen actually multiple things where he was answering questions. Yeah, phone's ringing. I'm not going to be able to get it. Thought I got lost. I don't have my map. When I died, I did not replace my map yet. Okay, he's talking about his encounter. I think when he was with the Nimitz, and this was something. And again, you've always had these people. All I can say is for the people that are out there doing this, I don't care if it's a job. I don't care if they're working covertly for the military or as a troll for your corporate defense contractors. I just hope they're being well paid. But when there was a discussion, this was last year. This was before my mom died. There was a discussion on this. And you got this jackass that I swear to God, I think he was playing four parts in the chat. Because I was getting this stuff where, he'd post something and then suddenly someone else who had basically his diction. It's basically the typing, the rhythm, and everything sounded like him. Well, he was sitting there like he'd say stuff like, "Oh," because it's like, well, they met him at his cap point, and this guy goes, "Oh, well, they've been using that same cap point for days, so obviously they knew where it was." I go, "Well, what's your proof of that?" And they go, "What do you mean?" I go, "Well, if you're going to make that claim, you got to provide proof." Because I go, "My understanding is that cap point was not the same every day." And I saw something where they were interviewing him, and he basically said that it was classified for the drills they were doing. He goes, "That's classified." He goes, "Nobody knew it." So that's the statement from an expert who was on the scene. I go, "Where's your proof?" Because I go, if you don't have any proof, we're just going to assume you're making it up and pulling it out of your ass. And then he wanted to change the subject. And this is something he brought up that I think is very valuable. Is first of all, he's a Navy pilot. He's fairly well aware of what our capabilities are because he's flying like the cutting edge stuff. And he basically made a comment that the stuff he saw is like light years ahead of us. And I saw something with Travis from Skinwalker Ranch, and I think they brought a senator in on last night's episode. I got to watch it again, but I remember some of it. I was kind of tired when I was watching it, but he let that guy know that if this is something human made, he goes, it's at least 50 to 100 years of us on our understanding of physics. And that's kind of what Fravor said. He's like, look, this is so far beyond what we have. He goes, I can't imagine, I'm paraphrasing, but he couldn't really imagine that it actually was made by another country. And because he said if it was, and this is the thing that's been said before, if it's made by another country, like Tim Burchett said this, if Russia or China if Russia owned it, they would not be getting their ass kicked in Ukraine. They would have finished it in like a couple days. And he said that if China owned it, they would be over here stomping on us. There just would be no question. They'd be over here kicking our ass, owning us more than they do now, he said. And but he said, and if it is something of ours, he goes, that's fine. But he goes, there should be oversight. And he goes, everybody I've talked to from Congress, there's no oversight. This is not something they're being briefed on. And he goes, if it is something that belongs to us, he goes, it should have oversight by people who were elected and in office, not these unelected people that are out there doing this. Okay, now this is the former pilot Graves. They're asking questions on this, and he's like, well, like one of the things is they need a centralized location where everything that's coming into the government can be grouped. And he goes, and it needs to be two-way. He goes, the people that are reporting this, fighter pilots especially, they need to be able to get feedback so they can update their knowledge. Because he said this is a thing for fighter pilots going back. He goes, we deal with uncertainty as like a standard procedure. And he goes, identifying friend or foe, knowing threats, things that are threatening, things that are not. He goes, is a normal thing, and it's always been important. But he goes, in this, we're not treating it like we should, like we would anything else. He goes, if this was Russian, if this was China, I'm paraphrasing here. I'm kind of expanding on what he said. But if this was a known threat, we would be doing this. You'd have briefings. Like you can go back and watch the movie Top Gun, the original one, where it's like, hey, this is so and so, call sign Charlie. She's a civilian, so you shouldn't salute her, but you should listen to her because the Pentagon listens to her about your assessments. And she went in and was basically telling them the classified stuff of Russian planes. This is what they can do. This is what they can't do. So when you face them, you can be better prepared. But I mean, that was in that movie, and that movie that a lot of people have seen, that kind of reinforces what he's talking about. And I mean, you don't have to be in the military to understand that's a common sense thing. That makes a lot of sense. They're asking, Fravors talking again about how they need a centralized location because he said, and he's talking about the stovepiping that caused 9/11. Because he's like going, well, if you just have it in the DOD, then you wouldn't get anything from intelligence. And Graves is mentioning that he agreed with everything Fravor said about that, but he said when you got your civilian pilots, like your airline pilots, he goes they need a centralized system where they can report to it because he said there's a lot of these civilian pilots that are frustrated because they don't seem to have any place where they can report this stuff. And apparently they see a lot of stuff. They've actually had YouTube clips of conversations at airports where you've got the people running the radar towers, direct traffic. They're like, hey, we're getting reports over here of something in the air. We're not seeing it on radar. Can anybody? And it start the whole conversation because they were getting multiple people that were seeing it. It was up in the air, but it was not on radar. They weren't seeing it. I gotta go get some chicken. I don't know what the fuck I did to my horse. I thought I parked my horse right here. Okay, it's not down there. It's not here. Well, I don't know what happened to my horse. Maybe I slept and I didn't put him in. I've done that before, but I am not seeing it, so I'm gonna have to go get a new horse.
Do you have any personal knowledge of people who have been harmed or injured in efforts to cover up or conceal these extraterrestrial technology? Have anyone been murdered that you know of or have heard of, please? Maybe in the we could get in a confidential area skip, we could talk about that. But unfortunately, we were denied access to the skip, and that's very important in this scenario. Um,
I'm gonna try and remember this. When Burchett gets done, I'm gonna talk.
you witnessed an additional object underwater in relation to your encounter.
Okay, he's done talking. That whistleblower Grouch. He was asked by Tim Burchett if people had been harmed to keep this quiet, and he said yes. And he goes, "Do you know it?" He goes, "Is this stuff you heard of, or did you know it personally?" He goes, I know of it personally that people were harmed." And then he goes, "Have people been murdered to cover this up?" And Grouch said, "I gotta be careful how I answer that because there's like some kind of a whistleblower investigation on him right now." And he goes, "And I just don't want to give anybody information that could lead him somewhere." So he doesn't want to do it out in the open, but he didn't say no. He didn't fucking say no.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Graves, you reported UAP encounters during training flights, and since then reported to warn the Pentagon that these encounters may be putting pilots at risk. Um, my first question is, we've identified these as taking place on the East Coast. Is it just on the East Coast where these encounters have been reported? Can you describe your experience after you decided to come forward and go public with your experience? Um, are there common characteristics to the UAPs that have been cited by different pilots, and can you describe the convergence of descriptions is? I'm sorry, dark gray or black cubes? Um, so I take it that you're arguing what we need is real transparency in the reporting system so we can get some clarity on what's going on out there because there are many pilots in their situation, but we should have a way of systematic
Mr. Raskin, Representative Raskin is asking Grouch and them. But the thing Graves was just talking about, and this has been a thing for a while, where he talks about, there seems to be two governments, and I'm kind of elaborating on what he was saying, but he was talking about there seems to be like two governments on this because, when he saw that those videos come out in 2017, he's like, well, I'd seen those before. I think he was active duty when they happened near his ship, and he reached out to some of his colleagues from back in those days, and it became clear to him that those guys had hit a wall. They just, that's when he got back involved in this and trying to get the story out. But there's always been this. If you go by the UFO accounts, you got officially, oh, nothing, nothing, nothing. And then behind the scenes, there's like, you get these people, they report and they get stonewalled, nothing. And then all of a sudden they get approached by like these, clandestine people who suddenly want to know everything. Fravors like the only one. He's the only one that's saying he was treated really well. He seems pretty happy. He goes, and he went through, the people that were below him, they're going to be retiring, so they weren't forced out, they weren't harassed. And he said, the people that were his rank or his area, they retired back, a few years ago. And then he made a comment that the higher ups, the higher ranking ones, like the 3 stars, the 4 stars, he goes, they've been really supportive. He goes, they believe. He goes, so it was good. Okay, now what he's talking about now, she's asking him how he can talk about this stuff, and he's explaining, and he gives you the gibberish, the legalese, the militaryese of how and he said, he goes, I'm just speaking my opinions. I'm not officially speaking for the military. And here's the thing, like, there's a movie, HBO did it. It's called Pentagon Wars, and it's based on the real story of developing the Bradley fighting vehicle, something that made it. They were using that, I think, in the second Gulf War. I don't know exactly when they were, but from what I remember, the Patriot vehicle was being used. I can't remember I had it and now I've lost it. Like I said, I've been lightheaded off and on for the last few days. It's been a bad stretch, but it might be a new normal. I don't know, but they. I'm gonna go back and get rid of this horse. But there was a scene in there. Kelsey Grammer played this general that was developed. It wasn't the Patriot, the Bradley fighting vehicle. Brain's coming back to me. I apologize. And I apologize to the memory of the great General Omar Bradley, who it was named after. And at least I think that's his name. If I got that wrong, I apologize for that too. But he was the general that was developing it, and he was fucking over the Air Force colonel that was doing this. And what he did was he wrote the memo of what he basically he told the truth, the colonel did, about how bad it was, how they needed like certain things done, they needed certain testing done. And the general rewrote it. He saw it, he read it, and he's on the shitter when he read it, and he's like, oh Jesus, he's just going off, and he throws it at his people. He's like, rewrite the son of a bitch and make it smell like a fucking rose. And then when he got it, he read the memo, and at some point, and it might have been before this, he had a Army sergeant that was working for him. And he told her he needed the rule book. And she goes, excuse me? He goes, there's got to be a book with all the rules of how this is run. He goes, I need that rule book. And he got it, he read through it, and what he found out was that the memo he wrote was classified. The revision of that memo was classified. But because of his oversight role, he could write an unclassified memo on the revisions. And that's what Grouch was talking about. It's in the same venue. Even if it's not the same rules, it's the same venue. He can talk about a lot of this because of his oversight. And that's the way I'm taking it. It's because he basically wrote it, and they're like, oh my God. Like, what happened? Well, he wrote a memo about our revisions, and he's like, what? And they told the general what he wrote, and he goes, court-martial the son of a bitch. And he goes, we can't, sir. He did it by the book. He goes, any revisions we made to his memo, he can write an unclassified memo and talk about them in detail. Well, that's what it sounded like he was talking about. I gotta say, if you don't do it now, do it later. There'll probably be clips of this up on YouTube. Keep an eye out for Need to Know. They are going to probably go into detail on this. News Nation has been covering this. Even The Hill, as fucking left-leaning as they are, I think they've done a reasonable job covering this subject at least. if you keep them off of vaccines and sucking Putin's cock, they don't do too bad of a job. But this is by far the best hearing that I've seen in Congress so far. Oh, that wasn't here. I'm looking at that one. I'm like, wait a minute, that white horse was not here. No, it's this one over here that. I can't figure out where that one went. What'll happen is it will move out of the area and then it'll be frozen. And sometime, somewhere, what'll happen is I will end up where it got frozen at, and then I will suddenly see it if it doesn't die. Okay, now this is Representative Mauskowitz or something like that, Democrat. I think I actually got his name right. And he's asking Grouch if he's seen satellite photos. And he said, yes, I have. And he mentioned, he goes, I was with a certain group until April. And he goes, so that's my information cutoff day. And he goes, my understanding is those have been classified and you guys have not been made aware of the reports. And he was either asked or he added that he's got, I think he said he's got a degree in physics, and he had no idea. He did not know how these things traveled. Okay, they got Representative Fox, and I find her to be fairly useless, but she's at least seems like she's taking it serious. Okay, she seems to be taking this serious. I got to give her that. Okay, it's like 10:20. Oh, hang on. I gotta go feed the cats. I'm gonna get where I'm going, then I'm gonna go feed the cats. I'll probably bring myself a snack. Oh, AOC's here, and this is Mr. Frost. He's another Democrat. I kind of want to be here for this, but I am gonna go feed the cats. Absolutely gonna go feed the cats. Okay, I'll be back as quick as I can. You can watch those pumpkins grow. Okay, Grouch was asked by that Tim Burchett that is there like a disinformation campaign? He was asked if there's any disinformation campaign, and he said, "I don't think I can talk any more than I already have." So again, that's not a no. And then there was like a interrupt that Representative Luna, who's a Republican, asked, whispered in Burchett's ear, and he goes, "Okay, I've been asked how we can like I've been asked for you to tell us what you've said publicly because he goes, we want to get it in the record." And he goes, well, he goes, you can reference my News Nation interview. And he goes, it was, I basically said that there was a decades long misinformation campaign. AOC's asking questions now. I really want to. I'll talk later. I want to hear what she's asking. Okay, I'm going to pause this because I don't want to miss what she's doing. I don't want to miss what's being responded to her. She was asking about, so I'm going to be out of sync with the thing for right now. Um, she was asking about the requirements to report this stuff, and he didn't really have. He goes, it was something she asked me. He's like, well, I really don't have any information on that. Well, then she was talking about the law, and she goes, the law for me, from my vantage point, and she goes, maybe I'm wrong, but she goes, it seems to have a big loophole because it requires them to report stuff, but it doesn't specify what they're supposed to report. And she asked him if he was aware of any reporting, and I can't. I'm not able to remember what it was. Hang on a sec. But he said, I'm aware of some of it, maybe not everything. And he said, like there's one specific area, and he had a name for it, and he said they notify, because she goes, well, how do they notify Congress? Is it to a dead email address or what? Because I think she's basically saying I'm not aware of anything getting to Congress, and he said it's done through the PPR and whatever that stands for. But he said that's got something to do with these private contractors and SAP programs. And but I think what she's getting at is they're required to, and I don't think they're going to do it, but I would hope that they would bring up the Wilson memo.
Connected to Bluetooth.
Okay, she now Grouch answered. I don't know if the other two are, but she did it as an open question to all three of them. And AOC wanted to know, like, if you were me, where would you look for this? And she's like, titles, programs. She went through the gambit. She goes, it's an open question, all three of you. Where should I look to? It was kind of like she did Michael Cohen. She's like, well, should I? He was talking about Donald Trump, and she goes, well, has he done other financial problems like this? And he said, oh yeah, he does them all the time. And Grouch said, I would be happy to tell you that in a closed session. He goes, I don't want to do it in an open session, but he goes, in a closed session, I would be happy to tell you where you could look and who you could talk to. Commander Fravor said that because of the classification, if you don't know who to talk to, you're locked out. But he goes, like, he's going to tell you who to talk to. He goes, once you know who to talk to, he goes, you got him. He said that. And then the other one, Graves said, well, I was an operator. He goes, I counted on people like Mr. Grush to do that. Now, Mr. Biggs, he's a Republican. He was asking, and Grouch answered him, but he goes, there was two incidents with lights, and the one of them I don't know the guy's name. The other one is the Goldwater Range or something like that. And he wanted to know if he'd get some help, like she was asking in a skiff, and he said, yeah, I can give you that later. But he goes, I don't really know that much about that case, but he goes, I might be able to help you out and find out who to talk to. I don't know how long I've been streaming. They were talking about overclassification again. I'm trying to listen more because the cases he brought up, I don't really know that much about them. Because Fravor, he was talking about it was some senior people. One of them captured something on an iPhone, and he was asking the guy about it later, and the guy goes, "Oh, that's TCSI," or It's some kind of a classification. I don't know what that is either. And he goes, okay. He goes, I don't understand. He goes, and he asked him. He goes, what is it about that makes it that classification? He goes, it's off of if it's off an iPhone. It was in public. Anybody could have been standing there. He goes, why is that classified? And then he goes, and see, here's what happens. They classify this stuff, then it gets stuck in a vault, and then you guys have to work to get it. This is Mr. Burleson. I don't know who he is either. He was just asked. He goes, asked, has it been uh, this non-human stuff that has injured people, or has it been humans to kind of? And he goes, both. He's seen both, and see, this is the cool thing about this one here. Like, you take that first one, and this is something, he was exaggerating a bit, but not much. But that Tim Burchett, representative from Tennessee, he goes, that first UFO hearing, they only had two answers. We don't know anything, or it's classified. Where if you were paying attention to Grouch, like, he was just asked if he'd seen alien bodies. And he thought, he goes, I got to be careful how I answer here, but he goes, I have not personally seen any alien bodies. So there's these questions, like he was asked a specific question. He's like, oh yeah, I can tell you later. I can't tell you now. Uh, like you said, well, have you seen people murdered for this? And he's like, yeah, I can't really answer that right now. So and the thing is, if it was no, it would be no. So that basically starts your clock. Get searching for this shit if you're a congressman. Okay, Matt Gates is on, and it really appears that he was trafficking in underage women. So I really don't want to hear from this guy. I'm sorry, you kind of lost me at that. That guy should probably be on a no-fly list, not sitting in Congress. I'm sorry. The thing I don't understand, because I don't know how this works, but Representative Tim Burchett, when it was brought up that they'd be willing to answer these in a closed session, he said that they tried to get a skiff and they were denied. And if that's the case, then that means they were getting denied by people in Congress. This is fucking huge. Even the Republicans that are kind of dipshits are asking some good questions in here. I gotta say, I'm impressed. This is Representative Langworthy. It was Representative Mace from, I think, North Carolina or South Carolina before. She asked some really good questions. I wasn't trying to interrupt her. Now, Jeremy Corbell, because they're asking Fravor about the videos that he was involved in getting shot of. God, I think it's the Tic Tac and the Go Fast video. I think are the two that he was. There's two of the three videos that came out together. I think back in 2017, he was involved in two of them. And according to Jeremy Corbell, if I'm remembering this, I'm a little lightheaded now. I'm trying to focus on this and it's having an effect. But according to him, that video that we saw, there's like 4 more minutes of it, and it wasn't one craft. If you watch the rest of the video, it that craft led them to a fleet of those, and that, if I'm not mistaken, it's the one that was flying real similar to the way Bob Lazar used to talk about them. I'm not going to be able to go on anymore. I'm getting lightheaded and I can't focus on this and keep doing this. So I'm just going to end the stream. But seriously, this has been by far, I think, the best one. So if you're not watching it now and you see this later, look for it. YouTube will probably have the whole thing up where you can watch it like I have. And and check it out. Seriously, check it out.